Hello, and welcome to Adapt or Perish. I bet everyone's saying it, but your hair looks super cool today. So before we get to today's episode on Lois Lowry's The Giver, we've got a couple of things to get out of the way. First, our next episode. This week is all about books for children. In 2 weeks, the opposite. Very much so the opposite. Ariel and I will be talking about Patricia Highsmith's 1952 novel, The Price of Salt, which in 2015 was made into the movie Carol, directed by Todd Haynes and starring Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara. We look forward to sharing our experience with you. Second, on a new installment of The West Wing, kind of bi-weekly and only in the intro, I'd like to give you all an update on my progress. This morning, I finished episode 18 of season 2. I'll just say this. Jed, how could you? You promised Abby that you would tell her if you were running for a second term. You promised. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. I feel better. And now, on with Adapt or Perish, episode 16, Lois Lowry's The Giver. Hello and welcome to Adapt or Perish, a podcast about adaptation. My name is Jeremy Latour.
And I'm Ariel Lipshaw.
We're very happy to talk to everybody this week.
Yeah, on this fine day.
Yeah, this is going to be a good episode.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a good one.
I mean,
I enjoyed the content a lot.
It's a lot of hubris just to say that right out, right out at the outset.
I think hubris is what defines our podcast.
Cool. All right.
I think, didn't we talk about The Godfather already?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's our opinion on things that people love. So what's the thing that people love that we're talking about this week?
Well, what we're talking about this week is actually one of my favorite childhood books. I have here in my hand my original copy from 1994. It is, let's see. It is 180 pages long, and it cost $4.50 US. $5.99 Canadian.
And this is turned into Antiques Roadshow. I love it.
And it was the winner of the 1994 Newbery Medal. It is The Giver by Lois Lowry.
Oh, this is a big one.
Yeah, this is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a book that you were shocked to find that I had never read.
Yeah, I don't understand how you'd never read this book.
This is now a confession. This is confession time. I never made it past 5th grade. That's why I never read The Giver.
It's not true.
No, it was always on a ton of lists, but I never read it.
Yeah,
it was
fair.
It was never an assigned book. It was always like on a list of options, and I always picked different options.
Okay. So just for a bit of background, I'm gonna read actually the back of the book.
It's time for back of the book.
All right. The Giver. Jonas's world is perfect. Everything is under control. There is no war or fear or pain. There are no choices. Every person is assigned a role in the community. When Jonas turns 12, he is singled out to receive special training from the Giver. The Giver alone holds the memories of the true pain and pleasure of life. Now it's time for Jonas to receive the truth. There is no turning back. And then there's a list of the various awards that this book received.
Which is many.
Many, including the 1994 Newbery Medal, which the Newbery Medal is like the #1 children's book of the year.
Can I tell you what I always thought this book was about?
Yeah, go ahead. I just dropped it on the floor.
That's what we think of Lois Lowry.
No, that's not true. I like Lois Lowry.
We threw it on the ground. Do you want to get it?
Yeah, hang on.
So I always thought
the book has been replaced on the table.
So I just want to give my impression. This is what I always thought the book was about. I always thought it was just a modern day, kind of where the red fern grows kind of thing.
Okay.
About an old man who lives in a shack in the woods, and a child goes and hangs out with him.
So that is a different book. That's Heidi.
Well, I thought...
You thought the Giver was like Heidi's grandfather.
No, because all of my assumptions were based on the cover.
It's just like a picture of an old man.
And woods. That's true. Yeah, that's true. But you never actually went so far as to turn the book over and read what it says on the back. It didn't appeal to me.
Okay.
It didn't appeal to me at all.
Okay.
Can I tell you something interesting that I found out?
Yes.
Do you know who took that picture?
No.
Lois Lowry.
Oh, who's in the picture?
He's an artist.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, he's an artist that she knew.
There's a picture on the cover, for those that don't know, of like an old man with a long beard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So what did you think? What did you think of the book?
I really liked it.
Okay.
And then I loved it.
Aw, that's nice.
Yeah, because it only took me like a couple hours to read.
Yeah, it's very short.
Yeah. I would say the last hour of the book was just crying. I really enjoyed it because I didn't know that it was I didn't know that it was dystopian sci-fi.
Right. This book is where I got my love of dystopian sci-fi. Like this was my favorite book. This was my favorite book. Probably this and Matilda, which maybe says something about me. But yeah, I mean, this book is definitely why I love this genre, because I read this a million times when I was a kid.
It's really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I loved it.
Yeah.
What are some things that you love about it, other than how it kind of introduced you to dystopian literature?
You know, apart from that. So this book takes place in a dystopian society, or they would probably say a utopian society.
Which is kind of how that works.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
And the main premise, and this is something that we find out kind of gradually throughout the first, half-ish of the book, is the premise is that clearly something very bad happened in the past. And these sort of bigger world, which is comprised of multiple communities, have gone to what they call sameness, which is capitalized. And basically, they've removed any element of difference or choice between, really anything. And one of the things you find out kind of late in the book, like it's kind of almost a bigger reveal, is that they actually don't see color. It's all shades of gray, like black and white. And one of the things that's totally normal for our main character, we're kind of seeing this through Jonas's eyes, and he is 11, about to be 12. And every year there's a big ceremony in town, and everyone gets promoted a year, everyone who's a child. But when you become 12, you're given your job, and then you still go to school and everything, and you're still a child, but it kind of sets you on your course for what the rest of your life is going to be.
Yeah, like school becomes training for your job.
Yeah, well, they still actually go to school, but then they go to their job after
school. Oh, right.
School.
Yeah.
And that is selected for you based on your skills and your, aptitudes and whatever.
Who selects that?
The council of elders and the chief. There's a chief elder, but there's a council of elders, and it's a very important job. They say, picking everyone's job is like the most important job in the community. And then as you get older, of course, like you can apply to have a spouse, and you're assigned a spouse, and then you can apply to have children, and you're assigned children. And one of the very creepy things is that everybody reports their dreams every day, their dreams and their feelings. They share feelings, and they tell their dreams in the morning. And the reason that they do this is because they want to keep track on when puberty begins, essentially, for the children. Because as soon as they have their first kind of erotic dream, they and this is a children's book, by the way. This is text. They start taking a pill every day that tamps down all of those sort of emotions and impulses and what have you. So it's very asexual, and it's all done by artificial insemination, and people are assigned, kind of like The Handmaid's Tale, assigned to be birth mothers.
Except it's kind of it's a job.
It's a job, it's a job. Not for the same reasons as The Handmaid's Tale, not because other people are sterile, although maybe the pill makes you sterile. I don't know. It's possible. But because that is a job of the community designated to people that they think would be good at having a bunch of children.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just remember. So at the beginning of the book, this is turning into kind of a book summary, but that's okay because maybe people haven't read it. Jonas is about to turn 12, and every year you get something different. So there's this big ceremony. It takes 2 days, and the 2-year-olds graduate to be 3-year-olds, and the 5-year-olds graduate to be 6-year-olds, and they're
called threes and fours and fives.
Exactly. So when you turn 9, everybody gets their first bicycle. That's because
no one drives cars.
No one drives cars.
Yeah.
Because it's a very small community. But when you turn 12, like I said, you get your assignment. And one of the things I remember really vividly as a child is reading through the beginning of the ceremony as the children kind of start to be assigned their jobs. And there's 50 children in every age group here. And the first kid is a doctor, and the next one is a groundskeeper, this and this and this. And I just remember thinking, I just want to know the rules. I want to see a list of all the jobs that are possible. I really want to know what's going on. And you remember I said this about The Handmaid's Tale too, which was just I want to know the rules. What are the rules of this world?
Yeah.
So
because I just want to say something really quickly. You almost get, I feel like in any other story I've seen like this, the jobs they give out, there's usually like 4.
Yeah.
There's like, you can be one of 4 different things.
Yeah.
But you really get the sense that
There's
there are
hundreds of
jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's all based on aptitude. So it's not like there are 50 jobs and 50 kids and everybody's going to get one. It's like maybe some years there isn't an assistant groundskeeper because nobody's good at that year.
Can I ask you, I just want to ask you for one example that we talked about. And that was for Asher, who is one of Jonas's friends.
Jonas's friends.
And Asher is this happy-go-lucky kid, and everybody likes him and everything. And he is given a very specific job.
Well, and the thing about Asher that people are a little bit worried about is he's clumsy and he's forgetful, and like he has to be rebuked. Like he doesn't fit in as well as most people do in the society. He's not. They have this thing called precision of language. You have to be very precise with your language, and you have to use the exact word that means the exact thing. And Asher's very bad at that. And Jonas going into the ceremony thinks like, well, what could Asher possibly be? What could he possibly be? And he's given the assignment of assistant director of recreation, which means he's going to be, work with the playgrounds and the parks and whatever, which is a really good job for him. But the thing I noticed on this read that I had never thought about before, because I haven't read it as an adult.
Now you're an adult who has like had jobs and
right.
has
I understand
gotten
what job titles are.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh no, he's not. He's going to be the assistant director forever. He's never going to be promoted to be the director because someone else has that job. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not only the aptitude, but the level to which you will ever rise is already predetermined when you're 12 years old, which is really depressing and something that I did not pick up on like as a kid reading this book.
So can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, of course.
So I feel like there's a whole aspect of this that you keep talking about and you keep referring to. They're 12.
Yeah, they're 12.
And so I never read this as a 12-year-old. I've only read it as an adult. But I think it's so clear through the book that the ages of these characters are one of the reasons why it's so popular.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why it works so well.
Yeah.
They're kids.
Yeah.
They're kids who have not become adults yet.
Right. And they're given these adult kind of assignments and training. And it doesn't mean like there are 12-year-old doctors.
No.
I mean, it's very clearly explained in the book. Like if you're assigned a doctor, your training is going to take years and years and years before you are a doctor, just like it does in our society. Mm-hmm. But that's the path that you're put on. Yeah.
No, and you mentioned another thing too, and this is like the last big thing that I love about the book is all of the different ways she sets up the world. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because it's a kid's book, it has to be really economical with language. Right. It's not a long book.
Precision of language.
But that's the thing. So precision of language is one of my favorite parts of it. Another thing that I loved was the structure they have around apologizing.
Yeah.
So anytime anybody does anything wrong, they have to apologize
immediately, and
their apology has to be accepted.
Right.
Every single time.
Right. And there's this kind of creepy vibe of like someone's always watching and there's a speaker that does like sort of community announcements. So that's like somebody's job to be the speaker. And like if you do something wrong, there'll be like this general reprimand, but it's aimed at you. Like at one point he like steals an apple and there's like this reprimand over the speaker of like male 12s are reminded that food must not be taken from the recreation area or whatever it is. Oh, the gender roles are super creepy too in the book.
Yeah.
Not as creepy as you think because like the male female pairings like are not based on like sexual attraction.
Right. They're based on compatibility.
They're based on compatibility.
As determined by the Council of Elders.
Right.
Or some organization.
And like, so Jonas has parents and his mom is, his dad is a nurturer. His dad takes care of the new babies because...
New children.
Because like on the day of the ceremony, which is in December, all the new children turn 1, including the ones that were born like just a few days before. Like all of them that were born that year turn 1. And they're given to families on that day. So there has to be people who take care of them from like birth to age 1 or whatever. And so his dad is like a little bit described as sort of like a little more softer spoken and more gentle and more caring. And those were the attributes of his personality that made him a nurturer. His mom, is a judge. She's like very high up in like law and justice. And she's described as being, she has higher intelligence than his dad, but he has, a more caring personality, and that's why they work well together. They're very compatible. Mm-hmm. So that's...
I would like to talk about 3 things.
Yes.
Related to the book.
Well, we've spent a lot of time talking about job assignments, so we should probably talk about why, because it's very important for our main character, Jonas. because he's given a particular job.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the job he is given?
He is given the job of receiver of memory. Should I explain what that is, or do you want to explain?
Let me explain.
Go ahead.
So one of the things we are given to understand in the world of this book is that in order to keep everybody nice and docile, memories of the way the world worked before whatever the thing was that happened have been removed from society.
Yeah.
And they are all contained within the brain of one person.
Yeah. Not only the way the world works, but like emotions and feelings and colors and sounds. And
memories of everything.
Yeah. Anything that's not like on the most even plane. Anything good, anything bad.
So that's all contained within one person. If that person doesn't exist, all those memories get released and go back into everybody else.
Yep.
And of course, that person is eventually going to die.
Yep.
So that the receiver
they're going to be released, which we can talk about later.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
So the receiver has to train a new receiver. And when the receiver is training a new receiver, they become the giver. So Jonas becomes the new receiver.
Right.
It's a really great scene in the book where he's skipped over in terms of his assignments.
Yeah.
And all the other kids go. And he's like, did they skip me? Is this something that reflects poorly on my family? And then they're like, this is a big one because this doesn't happen every year.
Right.
Jonas is our new receiver.
Yeah, and everyone knows what that means.
And he meets the giver. And so I was just going to say before, there are 3 things in this book that make me cry.
Okay.
3 things that ended up making me cry.
Go ahead.
One of them is the relationship between Jonas and the giver. They have a wonderful, beautiful relationship.
They get very, very close, and he's like an old man.
Yeah, they spend like a year together in training. And that's like the whole... He doesn't even meet the giver until halfway through the book.
Oh, right. Yeah. They spend a lot of time kind of setting up the world.
Yeah, and so that next year is just him with the giver receiving memories.
Yeah.
Memories about everything, good and bad.
And by receiving memories, just to be clear, like if you haven't read the book or seen the movie, it's very experiential. It's not just, I'm going to tell you what happened. It's not like a storyteller. It's like this sort of magical thing that he's actually sort of experiencing all of these different things.
Yeah, and when he experiences it, the memories go into him and they leave the giver.
Right.
So the giver doesn't have those anymore.
Right.
So that's one thing. The relationship between the two of them is great. And I really love the giver too, because the giver, he's definitely part of this society. He really has bought into the whole thing. He's not some revolutionary that's telling Jonas, this is not the way things work now is not the way things work. He's like, I've bought in.
I would disagree a little bit that he's totally bought in. I think that
I didn't say he was totally bought in.
No. But he is certainly not like indoctrinating Jonas into any way of thinking. But it's more like my private opinion is maybe that the way we do things is not great, but like there's nothing that I can do about it.
Like, but it's his relationship with Jonas over the course of the next year that brings him to a point where he is more willing to accept that this is not the way things should be.
Right. Yeah. Jonas sort of has more sort of youthful energy as far as that's concerned. And as Jonas says to him, like, but there's 2 of us now, which is really sweet.
Which made me cry.
Yeah.
That made me cry. But I really, really like the character of the giver.
Yeah.
It's kind of grizzled old man.
If the line, there's 2 of us now, makes you cry, just wait till we do Outlander.
Oh, that's different.
Okay.
All right. So, I mean, probably.
Just a little preview of that.
Everything makes me cry. So that's one thing. Let's talk about release.
Yes.
So when you are not part of the community.
For various reasons.
Maybe you are a baby that is not healthy and is not going to grow into a person who will be a good member of the community.
Maybe you're a criminal.
Maybe you screw up too many times. Maybe you are an old, which is literally how they're referred to.
The old, yes.
The old. You are one of the old.
You are an old.
Yeah. These are all reasons
Those
to
are
be
all reasons, or
released.
you can request to be released. If you feel that you don't fit in, you can do that too.
And you're released to elsewhere, outside the community, which is what everybody understands.
Yep,
that's what happens.
What is elsewhere really?
Elsewhere is death. You are dead. When you are released, you are killed. That is what happens.
Yep.
If you're a baby and you're released, they inject you and you die. If you're an adult, they inject you and you die. Release is death.
You just die forever.
Which goes back to one of the things I love about the book, because I love that it's about kids.
Right.
Because it's about kids learning about death.
Right. Because people, unless you have a reason, and I don't think this is just around kids, I think unless you have a reason to know what being released means, you don't necessarily know. So
Right.
like there are people that are trained in doing the releases for the babies. For example, like Jonas's father, that he feels like horribly betrayed when he finds out
He sees his father release a baby.
he sees him inject a baby in the head and kill the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Or his friend Fiona, her assignment is to be a caretaker for the old, and the giver says to him at one point, like, your friend Fiona is being trained on how to do this, like, you do understand that. And he's like, no, she would never do that. And he's like, yeah, she would.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if you aren't in those jobs that directly involve that, like his mother clearly knows because she's a judge.
Yep.
But I feel like even the adults in the community don't necessarily know or like ask. To be curious and to ask questions is considered very rude. It's very rude in the community to do that. Like there are a lot of things in the book that we are told is super rude. Touching another person is super rude.
Yeah.
Like
lying is very bad.
Lying is very bad. Asking questions or being sort of too personal is very bad.
Yeah. And can I say a quick thing about all those rules? So when you're given a new job, when you become a 12 and you're given your assignment, you get a new set of rules that go along with your job. He gets a new set of rules, and it tells him most of these do not apply to him.
Right.
Like he can lie.
Yeah.
He is allowed to lie.
And he's allowed to be rude.
He's allowed to be rude. It's very interesting.
And he's not allowed to talk about his training with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The world becomes much more complicated for him.
Yes.
And that's one of the other things that I love about the book is Jonas becoming an adult and finding out, again, it's that metaphor of becoming an adult.
Right.
And finding out that the world is complicated.
Right.
And Jonas trying to figure out his place in a new world that is much more complicated than he expected is really heartbreaking.
Yeah. So the book actually takes a long time to set up this world. The thing that I love about it is it's really revealed very gradually, in a way, because it's through Jonas's eyes. It's not in first person, but it's through his eyes. So there's a lot of stuff that to him is just so normal that he doesn't question it, and then you only kind of realize later that that's what's happening. The not seeing color is a really good example of that.
Yeah.
Like until he learns what color is through the memories, you kind of have to stop and think like, oh wait, has she not mentioned a single color so far? And you go back and you realize like he's talked about an apple and there's a description of an apple, but it never mentions the color. It talks about the shade, but not saying like the apple was red, you know?
And there's this thing that keeps happening to him throughout the first half of the book where he will look at something and it will change.
Yeah.
That's all she says. It changes. And reading it for the first time, you're just like, how is it changing? What is it changing into? And then it simply becomes as simple as, oh, now he can see the color red.
He's starting to see color.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's brilliant.
And we're also, the other thing that's important that we're given to understand is like there is actually something physically different about him. Everyone in the community has dark eyes except for him and the giver. And there's a little girl in the community that also has this who's only like 6, and there's also a baby that has light eyes. So we know that it's never really explained. It doesn't really matter, but like it's not just that he was chosen because he's particularly smart or particularly good or whatever. There is something physical about him that is different that makes him have this perception.
Yeah. Can I say a quick thing about the family? Just quick background.
Yeah.
So Jonas lives with his mother and father and also his younger sister. And there's also the baby Gabriel, who is a new child that has
the wee baby Gabriel.
The wee baby Gabriel, who has not been doing well and can't sleep through the night and is crying all the time. So his father, the nurturer, has been tasked with, he's basically volunteered to bring the baby home and nurture at home.
Yeah.
And they're not going to keep the baby once the baby becomes a 1.
Oh, because you can only have 2 children. You can't have more than 2.
Yeah. Once the baby becomes a 1, it is going to get assigned to a family. Yeah. Or it'll get released.
Which
if it never comes to that, if it ever comes to that, it'll get released. And so he really develops a relationship with Gabriel. And so he knows that Gabriel might get released, but he thinks it's something nice and peaceful.
He thinks it's good.
And so eventually when he finds out that release means death, his relationship with Gabriel becomes much more important.
Like, I have to protect this baby.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to be killed.
And how does the book end?
The book ends, so he and the giver have made this plan that he is going to leave the community. He's going to escape. They've planned it out really meticulously, that the giver is going to help him, like give him the right memories that he needs and like everything like that. And he's going to escape, and they've got this very particular escape plan, and he's going to leave the community, and all the memories will come back to the community, which is what happens. But their plan gets a little foiled because it turns out he goes home one night and learns that Gabriel is scheduled to be released the next morning. So he's like, crap, I gotta go tonight. Like, we can't do our plan. I just got to do this thing now. And he kidnaps Gabriel,
Mm-hmm.
grabs his bike, and just books it out of town. And sure enough, you know, he feels the memories leaving him, so we believe that they're being released back to the community, and the people are just going to have to deal with it, which hopefully is a change for the better. But the end of the book is a little bit abstract. Do you want to talk about what happens at the end?
Well, I want to talk about it, but I also have some information to tell you about it.
Okay, great.
So in the book, it's a little ambiguous
Mhm.
as to whether
He
they
survives.
survive.
Yeah.
He and the baby survive.
I mean, there's a sequel that I'm pretty sure he's in, which I have not read, so I think I know that they survive.
They absolutely survive.
Yeah, okay.
They absolutely survive. Lois Lowry was getting interviewed, and she says, "Yeah, it's funny to me that people think that they die. They don't die. they do not die at the end of the book. They are alive.
Yeah.
I wrote sequels. They are in.
Yeah.
They do not die.
That's great.
I've never read the sequels.
Neither have I. I've actually never read them, which is weird considering this is one of my favorite books.
Yeah,
as a
I
kid.
want to read them now.
Yeah.
I definitely do. So is there anything more you want to say about the book? I'm sure there's a lot of little things that are going to come up as we talk
Yeah, there's
about
little things that
the
will come
movie.
up, but like I wanted to spend a little more time with the plot of the book because I think it's important as we talk about the movie to understand sort of the very specific areas how it's different from the book.
Yeah. Now, I think before we talk about the movie, let's just kind of reassess where we're at in terms of the book.
Yeah.
Okay. So the book is thoughtful. I wouldn't call it slow, but it's definitely very methodically paced.
Yes.
There's not a lot of tension other than the fact that we find out release means death.
There's not a lot of tension between characters for sure.
There really
The
isn't.
only tension is really Jonas's feelings of betrayal, but nobody has any feelings to reflect back at him because they don't have feelings.
Right. So there really are no villains in this. The villain is the world.
Yeah.
That's really how it works.
Yeah.
And he and the giver are working together to help the world.
Right.
So then,
Yes. They made this movie.
in 2014, they made a movie called The Giver.
Yep.
So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the movie.
Yeah, go for it. Do you want to do back of the box for the movie?
I'm gonna do back of the box for the movie. This will give a little indication as to what direction they went in.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. The story of The Giver centers on Jonas, Brenton Thwaites, a young man who lives in a seemingly ideal, if colorless, world of conformity and contentment. Yet as he begins to spend time with the giver, Jeff Bridges, who is the sole keeper of all the community's memories, Jonas quickly begins to discover the dark and deadly truths of his community's secret past. With this newfound power of knowledge, he realizes that the stakes are higher than imagined, a matter of life and death for himself and those he loves most. At extreme odds, Jonas knows that he must escape their world to protect them all, a challenge that no one has ever succeeded at before. The Giver, directed by Philip Noyce and screenplay by Michael Mitnick and Robert B. Wide, is based on Lois Lowry's beloved young adult novel of the same name, which was the winner of the 1994 Newbery Medal and has sold over 12 million copies worldwide.
Based on.
Yep.
Based on.
Based on.
Loosely based
Loosely
on.
based on. Well, it's weird. So here's the deal. It is absolutely based on it.
Yeah.
It is the same story.
It's the same. Yeah.
The tone is a little different.
Yeah, like life and death, challenges,
They turn
dark and deadly. Like
they turn
all
it into a
these words.
sci-fi thriller.
Yeah, it's a sci-fi thriller.
They turn it into a sci-fi
100%.
thriller.
It's like that movie The Island. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah. It's the island for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's a couple things about the movie just to give a little background on this. So it was released in August of 2014. It was primarily produced by the Weinstein Company.
Boo.
Weinstein? Why? No one says that. That's not how that's pronounced.
Yeah.
Weinstein. Yeah.
Boo.
Yeah. Boo. Boo.
Boo.
It's 2018 as we record this.
Boo.
So boo at the Weinstein Company. It was also, because everybody thinks of these two companies together, it was also co-financed by Walden Media,
Great.
who is primarily known for family-friendly fare, like the Chronicles of Narnia.
Cool.
And a lot of... So...
I mean, it's like a Christian publishing company, right?
Not really.
Okay.
No. They're official... They are a production company that primarily worked on adapting children's literature.
Mm-hmm.
They are primarily owned by someone who is a conservative Christian.
I see.
But not necessarily everything they make has a Christian kind of message in it.
Okay. Other than The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Well, that was the big one. And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing that kind of led to that analysis of them,
Uh-huh.
that interpretation of everything they do.
Yeah.
But I've seen a few of their things. Like I saw
The
Bridge
lion is Jesus.
to... Well, we know that. And I saw like Bridge to Terabithia, which I didn't care for.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do that at some
We
point.
should do that because I love that book.
Oh, the movie's not good.
Oh, cool.
So,
Great.
their movie... Anyway, they didn't really produce this. Around this time, they actually got away from producing movies and they just got into co-financing movies.
Cool.
So the Weinstein Company made this movie.
I mean, that's also bad.
It was directed by Philip Noyce.
Mm-hmm.
He is an Australian director.
Okay.
I'm going to give a list of things he's done.
Oh, boy.
Patriot Games, Sliver, Clear and Present Danger, The Saint, which is one of my favorite movies, The Bone Collector, Rabbit Proof Fence, The Quiet American, starring Michael Caine, and Salt. So
he's
very
done actually
eclectic,
a lot of sort of thrillers, actually.
He's done a lot of
like
thrillers,
all the Tom Clancy novels.
thrillers and like quiet dramas.
Yeah.
And that was one of the reasons why they hired him.
Yeah.
They said he can do both of the tones that we want in this movie.
Uh-huh.
And I actually don't really blame him for why I don't like the movie.
Okay.
But I think we're going to get into where the blame lies
Cool.
later.
Cool.
Spoiler alert.
Can we blame Harvey Weinstein?
We didn't like it. And yes, we're probably going to blame Harvey Weinstein for a number of things. I want to talk about who wrote it.
Okay.
So in order to talk about who wrote it, I want to give this as a piece of background. We're going to get into more background later, but this is a quick part.
Go ahead.
This is a movie Jeff Bridges had been trying to get made for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to make a movie in the 90s for his kids. He was looking through like a list of children's stories, found The Giver, looked at the cover, said, oh, look at this grizzled old man. I could direct this and my dad could play him.
Oh, boy.
Then read it and loved it.
Okay.
But basically judged the book by its cover.
Literally. Judge the book by its cover.
Literally, but it's a really good book.
It's a great book,
he's
yeah.
good. So this is
Good
something
cover.
he was trying to make for a really, really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally it got made and many changes were made along the way. But Jeff Bridges originally was going to direct. His father, Lloyd Bridges, who
did not survive to the actual movie.
He was very old at that
time.
He
was very old.
For anyone who doesn't know Lloyd Bridges, he's the one from Airplane who picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue. And we're going to get
He's
into
in
why
many other things. Like, that's not the thing that I think people know him from.
that is 100% the thing. Get back at us. Let us know if there's something else that you immediately think of Lloyd Bridges from other than Airplane.
Cool.
So he has been involved for a really, really long time. So that's something I just want to get out of the way because Jeff Bridges is very involved in this. So there was one script that was written back in the 90s by Robert B. Wide. He did a lot of comedy documentaries. So he did a documentary about the Marx Brothers and one about W.C. Fields and Mort Saul and Lenny Bruce. And he did there was like a 2-part documentary of Woody Allen that came out because I didn't want to let an episode where we talk about Harvey Weinstein go without also talking about Woody Allen.
Boo.
He's also the producer and principal director for Curb Your Enthusiasm for like 5 years.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's Robert B. Wide. So he wrote, best I can tell, he wrote a draft in the 90s.
Okay.
Then the current version was a draft that was written by Michael Mitnick. Here are some things I found out about Michael Mitnick. Okay. When he wrote it, he was under 30. He went to Harvard.
Okay.
He earned an MFA in playwriting from the Yale School of Drama.
Cool.
He was selected as one of 10 screenwriters to watch in 2013 by Variety. He has written one other movie.
Okay.
That came out last year.
So like the rest of us doing nothing with his MFA.
Exactly. Yes. I feel for this guy. He is definitely much more successful than I am.
Yeah. Maybe he went back to the stage. Has he written any plays?
It didn't look like it.
Oh, okay.
But he definitely wrote some plays.
Okay.
So that's
maybe like us, he's working a tech job and doing a slightly unsuccessful podcast.
Slightly unsuccessful? What are you talking about? I would say success is not even a thing we should be talking about.
I mean, what really is the measure of success?
Our podcast defies conversations of success or non-success. Our podcast just is.
We both have MFAs, if that wasn't clear.
Yes, we do. But those are some things I found out about these people. So let's get into it.
Okay.
Did you like this movie?
No.
Okay, I didn't either.
Well,
and that's our shortest episode ever.
Done.
No, so we agreed that we were going to do something before we talk about what we don't like.
Yes.
We were going to talk about what we do like.
Yes, because we don't want to just crap all over this movie.
No.
Because it's not interesting. It's not fun.
No. I will say the meal of this conversation, the appetizer is going to be very good. The entree will be bad.
Great.
So let's start with the appetizer.
Okay.
So one way that the movie is set up, the movie is shot in black and white.
Yes.
And then Pleasantville style.
Yes.
The color is actually introduced into the movie.
Yeah.
And then as the movie goes along, as Jonas learns more and more about the world and gets all these memories, the movie turns from black and white to color. They did a really cool thing with it too at the end, where when he is separated from the community and we see the community reacting to him leaving, the community's in black and white again. It's in black and white again,
yeah. And they did a cool thing too, like when he starts to see the color red, like you only see the red tones and it's kind of just sepia, and it actually looked really cool. Like,
it did.
Like kind of desaturated.
Yeah. We had kind of not an argument, a little bit of a discussion about how it could be done.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a better way to do it in a
Yeah.
movie, but I actually really liked it. I think it's a really simple way to show a character being able to see something that other characters don't see.
No, I agree with that. I think my objection was, so in the book, the point at which he starts to see color is like halfway, 3/4 into the book. And I feel like part of the reason that the pace, and we'll get into the pace, but like part of the reason it felt so rushed to get to that point where he starts to see color is the filmmakers were like, well, we don't want to have more than 15 or 20 minutes of this movie in black and white.
Let me interrupt.
Okay.
Harvey Weinstein didn't want the audiences to have to see too much black and white.
There it is.
I'm just going to blame him for everything
Is
from
that a
here
real
on out.
thing? Wait, is that something real that you found out, or are we just blaming Harvey Weinstein?
I'm
happy with doing that.
I'm
That's
making
fine.
that decision. I watched so much behind the scenes stuff and did so much research into this. I kind of like everybody who made this movie.
Yeah.
So I don't want to blame any of them for it. So I'm going to blame Harvey Weinstein.
Great. Sounds good. I'm thrilled with that.
So he thinks audiences don't want to watch a lot of black and white.
Yeah.
But anyway, I like the way they handle that.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else to say about the black and white?
No, I don't have anything else to say about the black and white.
All right. There's another aspect of the movie that you really like.
The technology?
Yes.
Yeah. So in the book, there's not much of an emphasis on the technology of the world. Like there's like a speaker that kind of knows all and sees all, and there are people that come around and deliver like your food, like nobody cooks, and various things like that. But it's supposed to feel futuristic. And I feel like if you're making a movie in 2014 from a book that was written in the early 90s, where the author didn't necessarily anticipate technology, I think it's okay that they added sort of this layer of technology on top of it to make it seem like more futuristic. Because if they had just done the book as written, it wouldn't seem futuristic. It would seem really dated. Because in the book, it doesn't seem that dated because you're not looking at it. But like actually visually seeing that, it would look like, old Star Trek. It would look really weird.
Well, I think the other thing too is in a book, you kind of start imagining the way the world works. But in a movie, you have to show everything.
Yeah.
You can't leave this stuff up to interpretation as much.
I did hate the drone pilot.
We're just talking about things we like.
No, but that's part of the technology.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's lots of like touch screens, and like they made a change instead of like taking a pill for your pubic stirrings.
Pubic?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Pubertal stirrings. You get an injection.
I think pubescent is a word that already exists that's pretty good for
I
that.
like pubic stirrings.
All right.
Title of our episode.
Pubic stirrings.
You get like a weird injection, like in your wrist, like as you leave the house every day, and it like knows that you were injected.
And it's definitely a lot more in the book. He just stops taking his daily pill.
Yeah.
And in the movie, he uses an apple to take the injection for him.
Yeah.
And it is more dramatic.
It's more dramatic. It's cool.
It works better.
It works a little better.
Yeah. That's so technology.
Yeah.
They definitely added a lot of that, and I think it works.
I think it works. I think it was a good idea.
I think there are a few places where they go a little overboard with it. I don't
like with the drone pilot.
With the drone pilot. So you talk about that, then there's one I want to talk about.
Oh no, it's just one of the big changes that they made was Asher, his friend Asher, and instead of being assigned assistant director of recreation, assistant.
It's actually assistant to the director. Yeah.
But like the character isn't changed. It's like, oh, Asher, you're so happy-go-lucky. You're so fun. You're so unpredictable. We're going to make you a drone pilot.
But they even say specifically he needs structure in his life.
Yeah.
So we are making him a drone pilot.
It's so stupid.
It's really dumb.
It's really dumb.
One thing that I didn't like, there's an overuse of holograms in this movie.
Yeah.
They really like inserting people in hologram.
Yeah.
So the chief elder, who we'll get into who plays all these characters in a minute.
Yep.
But the chief elder... at the ceremony where everybody gets their assignments.
Yeah.
In the book, she is there.
And in the book, it's only her. She is the chief elder of the community. In this, it's like she's more like the president of the whole world.
Yeah.
Because she talks about other communities that she's responsible for.
Right. So she is there in hologram in the movie. And throughout the movie, she kind of pops up in hologram in different places.
It's really weird.
I just think it's kind of overused.
I kind of think that maybe... Should I say who the actor is?
Yeah, her name's Meryl Streep?
Yeah.
Is it Streep?
I think I don't know if you found out about anything, but my theory is Meryl Streep was only available for like a day, so they just filmed all these weird hologram scenes and then inserted her.
No, that's my understanding.
Yeah.
No, sorry, that's not my understanding. That's my assumption.
Yeah.
Precision of language.
Yes. please.
Yeah, no, of course, at all times.
Yeah.
So technology, by and large, I actually think works really well.
Occasionally misused.
Yeah. I think the movie clearly was hamstrung by budget. It is clearly not the most high budget movie ever.
There's a point where they're like outside and there's this sort of chase, like this sort of motorbike chase, and Jeremy goes, they had like 50 feet of this set.
Yeah, it's just the same 50 feet over and over again. But actually, if they hadn't decided to make the movie as futuristic as they did, I think their budget would have gone a lot farther in terms of production design.
Yeah.
But I think they overextended themselves.
Yeah, but it also would have kind of looked, I think it would have looked like a made-for-TV movie, like more than it already does.
I'd rather see a well-produced made-for-TV movie than a poorly produced made-for-theater movie.
I agree with that, but I don't think that's what the producers wanted.
Well, no, that's not what Harvey Weinstein wants.
Let's blame the Weinsteins for that as well.
Yeah. No, we don't want that, but Harvey Weinstein doesn't care what we want.
He doesn't care what anyone wants.
He really doesn't. And then there's one other thing that they made a change to.
Yeah.
And this is a very small, but ultimately, I think, very substantial change that makes a lot of sense.
Go ahead.
So in the book, I would like you to describe to our audience when the giver gives memories to Jonas.
Yes.
Can you set the scene for everybody?
Yes,
Can you describe the blocking?
This is very explicitly described multiple times.
Yes.
Jonas,
let
us
12.
remember, is 12,
Yep.
a 12-year-old boy. The giver's room is very small and there's like a chair and a bed.
Yep.
And Jonas removes his top.
Yep.
And lies down on the bed.
On his back.
On his stomach.
Okay.
With his bare back facing up. And the elderly man with whom he is alone in a locked room. We are given to understand the only room in the entire community that locks and that the speaker can be turned off.
Yep.
Places his hands on his bare back, thus to transmit the memories of joy and good feelings, and also badness.
Yes. So I'm just going to say, maybe our times are too cynical. That I guess I'd never read this before, but even while I was reading it, I was just like, "Oh, this is icky.
Yeah,
this doesn't work."
It really icked me out when I was reading again. Like the first time reading this as an adult, really grossed me out.
Did it gross you out when you were a kid?
No, I never thought about it.
Oh, the innocence of youth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, never gave it a second thought.
The innocence of youth in 1994.
Yeah, never thought about it.
Oh, so in the movie, they are sitting in chairs directly across from each other.
Jonas, I mean, this is important.
How many of his clothes does he have on?
All of them.
Oh, good.
All of them, and also he's an adult.
Well, we're going to get to that in a minute. That doesn't fall under things we like.
They basically just grab each other's wrists as if to do a complicated handshake.
He places his hands like palm up.
Yeah.
His arms out, palm up, and the giver takes his wrists like.
Well, the sign in this movie, the physical sign of being open to transmission, is not the color of the eyes, but he's got like a birthmark or something on his wrist.
Yeah.
So I was under the impression that you sort of had to touch birthmarks to make the thing happen.
You know, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
But you know what? Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Makes sense.
Why not?
Yep. So those are the things we liked.
The less sort of sketchy near molestation images. Not good.
Real good choice.
Yeah, good choice. That's
real
good choice. Yeah, whoever made that choice, smart.
Yep. It definitely, you know who it wasn't?
Harvey Weinstein.
Nope.
Oh, gross.
That was definitely not his choice.
Oh.
So let's talk about things. Let's talk about things we didn't like.
Yeah.
So let's just get it out of the way.
Okay.
They make a substantial change, and I don't like it.
And this is...
And you don't like it?
No.
And what is it?
And again, and this is a change not just in the casting of an actor, but in the working of the world. The assignments are, it is not the ceremony of 12 anymore. It is called graduation.
Yep.
And it happens when a young man or a young woman reaches the age not of 12, but of 18.
Yep.
So all of the children are, I'm putting this in quotes, 18. Which is okay.
Yep.
It's not terrible.
I didn't like it.
No, I didn't like it. But it gets a little worse. So right off the bat, here's a problem.
Part of it might not be as bad as you're expecting, by the way.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, here's a problem. Because the way that Jonas has a lot of questions, right? He has a lot of questions about the way the world works. He's very innocent. He is very naive. He doesn't understand. It's a lot of him figuring stuff out and saying things like, well, of course we do it this way. It wouldn't make any sense. What if people could choose their own spouses? That would be crazy, which is kind of endearing when a 12-year-old says it.
Mm-hmm.
And also he's figuring it out. He's figuring it out and he's 12. So when you put those types of questions in the mouth of an 18-year-old, the 18-year-old looks stupid.
Yep.
So that's part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of like we talked about in Little Women, that
Yeah.
Amy being played by an 18-year-old made her look stupid because she was supposed to be 12.
For anyone who didn't listen to that episode, Amy is a character who is how old?
12.
And in the movies, she was played by actresses as old as
27.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't work at all.
No.
It just makes them look stunted.
Stunted and
Yeah.
dumb.
Yeah.
So that's A. But then we're going to add to the problem that for this 18-year-old, with the mindset of a 12-year-old, because they didn't really age him up mentally.
Nope.
You cast a 24-year-old who is double the age of the character.
Mm-hmm.
It's not okay. It's not okay.
And I don't blame Brenton Thwaites. Brenton Thwaites, by the way.
I mean,
I don't blame him.
no,
It's
not his fault
He
that
does it-
he's
I think
24.
I think he does a good job.
He's got sort of a wide-eyed stare.
Yeah. You didn't even know he was British.
No,
until this morning.
his accent's very good.
Yeah, he's very good. It shouldn't have been him.
No.
And that's not his fault.
No, it should have been a 12-year-old.
Yeah. So a couple things about the ages of the actors.
God,
so
okay.
I'm gonna talk about the actors a little bit right here.
I would like you to. Do you have the parents too pulled up?
I do.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go through the cast right now,
Yep.
and let's just talk about some ages. So Jonas is played by Brenton Thwaites.
Yes.
Brenton Thwaites.
Every time you say his name, are you going to stop and say it slow like that?
What? Every time I say Brenton Thwaites? Brenton Thwaites. He's 24 at the time. He was in things like Oculus, Gods of Egypt, and Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales.
Mm-hmm.
Fiona, his friend, who then becomes a love interest in this movie,
Gross.
because they're old enough, is played by Odeya Rush. She was in Goosebumps. She was 16 at the time.
Okay.
So that's actually, at least she was age appropriate for what they did to the characters.
That's fair.
And then their friend Asher was played by an actor named Cameron Monaghan. He was 20 at the time, which is not as bad as 20 and 4.
No.
But still not great.
Not great.
He was in Shameless, and he's also in Gotham.
Cool.
Then there's the parents, as played by Alexander Skarsgård. Alexander Skateboard for the rest of the episode.
Son of Stellar Skateboard.
Son of Stellar Skateboard. So Alexander Skateboard is 37 in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Playing the father of an 18-year-old, which is
plausible, especially because none of this is biological anyway.
Right.
Yeah, you get a kid when you're old enough to get a kid.
Yeah.
So that's not crazy.
Yeah.
Alexander Skateboard was in True Blood, Battleship, The Legend of Tarzan. He was in Mute that just came out.
Mm-hmm.
And the mom, she has now graduated to mom.
Oh God.
Katie Holmes.
Yes.
Is the mom of The Creek.
Yeah.
And the Batman.
Yeah.
She's 35 in this movie. So she is 11 years older than the actor playing her son. Again, none of this is biological.
But also plausible to be the parent of an 18-year-old maybe-ish.
I am making the assumption that at the age of, I guess she must have been like, if my math is correct. God, I got to do math for a second. So
she would have been 17.
He's 24 playing 18.
Yeah. So
that's a 6-year difference. So she was 17.
Which would not be okay in the rules of this world because
she hadn't even graduated yet.
And also definitely not old enough to be the mother of the actor.
Yes. No, 100% not. So those are the actors, and those are their ages. We also have Jeff Bridges and Meryl. Is it Streep?
Yeah.
Streep. Meryl Streep.
Okay.
That's my joke I'm going to do this episode. I've decided on it. So those are our actors.
Yes.
They change the ages. Mm-hmm. It does not work.
No.
I'm going to tell you about someone else who felt that it didn't work.
Cool.
Who do you think felt that it didn't work?
I mean, I would hope the author Lois Lowry.
She was fine with it, actually.
God.
Yeah,
okay,
it turned out she was okay with it.
Tell me
she was actually really happy with Brenton Thwaites. Brenton Thwaites. She was really happy with his kind of wide-eyed. You say wide-eyed.
Yeah.
That was like kind of, I think, specifically how she described it. She
Interesting.
was okay with it.
What
Jeff
about-
Bridges.
Okay, that's good. I was
Jeff
going to say
Bridges.
Harvey Weinstein.
So one thing I found out, one of the things I watched that was very illuminating and also super awkward because these things always are, was a panel from San Diego Comic-Con in
boy.
2014 about the movie. Lois Lowry was there, Jeff Bridges was there, Odeya Rush was there, Mr. Thwaites was there, and
Mr. Thwaites.
Mr. Thwaites. They were all there. Lois Lowry doesn't even appear in it because she's behind the podium the entire time. It's where they shot it from. You can hear her, but you can't see her for an hour. But Jeff Bridges actually said one of the things that he was not going to budge on was the age of the kids. And he almost quit the project over it.
Okay, why didn't he?
Because he'd put so much of his time and had invested so much of himself in this project. He basically came to a crossroads and said, do I want this movie to be made with me or without me?
Yeah.
And he chose to have it and be made with him.
Yeah.
And he stayed on. And
it's also like a little bit awkward to say that like right to the faces of the people playing those characters.
And so this is now where we move into bold assumption territory.
Okay.
This is my bold assumption based on no fact at all.
Great.
I think he still thinks they should be played by 12-year-olds. And I think he is also a very considerate and political person.
Yeah.
I don't mean in a bad way. I mean in a good way. Like he's a working actor.
Like he's a nice person.
He's a nice person.
God, we hope.
Everything I've heard, I mean...
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Oh, God.
I'm just saying this is going to come out...
Yeah.
You know,
so he actually said, I was wrong. I was wrong. They're great.
Yeah.
They do a great job, and that's a change that was totally fine. And he actually said that it was the producers who wanted the change.
Yeah.
He never says Harvey Weinstein in particular.
Let's blame him.
But it is Harvey Weinstein's fault. Harvey Weinstein, I think he just wanted a Fiona that he was attracted to.
Gross. Oh.
Yep.
I mean, who's to say he was... Never mind.
Oh, that's super gross. You're the grossest. I can't believe you said that. Anyway. So that is a big change. I do not like it. I think it is a mistake. For the reasons you just said, it makes the characters sound stupid.
Yeah.
It doesn't make them sound innocent and childlike.
Yeah.
It makes them sound stupid.
Do you think this is... Yeah, I agree. Do you think this is a good point to do female characters a little underwritten?
Yeah, I think it is a good point to do that.
We need a theme song.
Yeah, we do.
Do.
That's already an existing thing. That's a thing already.
Female characters bad.
Okay, there it is. Go on. Who do you think? So tell me about how you feel about the female characters in this movie.
Bad.
Okay.
Bad.
In what way?
Well, the movie does not. No, I'm sorry. The movie does pass the Bechdel test. Well, no, because we see the chief elder talking to Jonas's mom, but they are talking about Jonas.
Yep.
So no, it does not pass.
Yep.
So that's A. So the female character that I'm going to talk about is Fiona.
Yes.
So in the book, we haven't really talked about Fiona very much. Fiona's Jonas's friend. She's his friend. That's all we're given to understand. And the reason that Jonas is told to start taking these pills is because he comes down one day and he reports a dream that this is kind of explicit for like a kid's book. He reports a dream.
This book also kills babies.
Yeah. So basically, they spent the day together volunteering at the old age home, like before they have their assignments, because you have to do volunteer work at the different places. And they spent the day bathing old people. And he goes home that night and has a dream that they're alone in the room. There's just one big tub, and he wants Fiona to take her clothes off and get in the tub. And like he describes it as like, I knew that she shouldn't, and I knew that I shouldn't ask her, but I just really wanted her to do it.
And the mom, she has this great reaction because she's basically like, here's pills.
Yeah.
Here's pills. Hang on, here's pills.
Yeah.
It's time for the pills.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Here we go. So that's all. That's really the only. Sort of implication, and it's not about Fiona. It's just about him being attracted to girls.
Yeah,
you know. And she's like very smart and very placid, and she's got a good temperament, and she's gonna work with the old. And at one point, we hear her say, "Yeah, did you know that? Like, I'm learning all these new things. Like, they're punished just like children. Like, I get to whack them with a stick. But she's fine with it. Like, she is fine with it.
Because this world is defined by everybody being fine with everything.
Yeah, and at one point, he's talking to the Giver about the old being released, and like I said earlier, he said like, oh, Fiona would never do that, and the Giver's like, yeah, absolutely she would. Like, she's already doing it.
Yeah.
You don't know. And that's kind of what we know about Fiona. So in the movie, they decided a couple of things. One,
Who's they?
Harvey Weinstein.
Yep. So what did Harvey Weinstein decide?
He decided to make Fiona sexy.
Yep. 16.
16. And she is, despite the fact that we are given to understand that all of their hormones are medically suppressed, is clearly attracted to Jonas and he to her.
When? Because she stops taking hers.
But she's like flirting. She like kind of flirts with him. Like, remember when they slide down the thing?
Yeah.
Like that's like, oh, haha, we're doing this fun, crazy thing together.
There's a thing about that we're going to talk about in a minute.
But basically she's not given any of the characteristics of that character from the book, and the aptitudes and the interests and whatever. She's just a girl, like there to be a girl for him to be attracted to. And the place that it deviates is that he stops taking his pill or his injection, but he convinces her to do so also. Just because he kind of says, like, stop doing it. And she's like, okay. Like, based on the rule, and we're going to talk about this later, like sort of the arbitrary rule breaking in the movie, which is stuff that, like, as we're told in the book, nobody would ever think to do or think to question. She just kind of stops doing it. And so there's one point where he hasn't been taking the injections or whatever, and he's like super attracted to her, and that he finds her, and this is only like one day that she stopped taking them, and he finds her in this little hiding place that like they go
it's
as
like behind a waterfall
that they go as friends with their other friend Asher. And she's like really upset, and she's going like, I'm feeling things and I don't understand like what this is. And he says basically like, hush your mouth. And he's like, how does this feel? And he kisses her.
Yep.
And I like basically stood up and yelled like, that's not consensual. Like, she doesn't understand what it is or what it means. Like, there's a reason that we have rules against like statutory rape, because we as a society have determined that people under a certain age, even if they say yes I consent, are not capable of providing consent. And I don't believe that she's capable of providing consent to being kissed, because she doesn't understand what she's consenting to.
I agree.
She doesn't have any of the context that he has. She doesn't have any of the guidance. She doesn't have any of like the understanding of what feelings are. She just has these feelings all of a sudden. I think it's really an unfair position for him to put her into. Like, it's really gross, actually. Thank you, Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. I mean, I think the interesting thing about it is you're describing the difference between Fiona in the book and the movie. In the book, she's written about much less.
Yeah.
But weirdly is underwritten in the movie.
Yes.
Because they made these decisions to expand her character,
but
they
she's
did
just a
it.
girl. She's just a set of breasts in the movie.
They just did it in a really, really simplistic, superficial way.
Yes.
It does. I did not like it, and I applaud your I applaud your nominee for the female character is a little underwritten.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's one, before we move on to the next part, there's one more thing about the cast that I know you wanted to say something about.
I think we have to mention this. Yeah. Like, this is kind of the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the elephant in the room?
I don't think this is the elephant in the room.
This is an elephant in the room.
There's many elephants in the room.
Okay. Here's what I have to say. Something very important about this society is that they have gone to sameness with a capital S. And in the memories that Jonas is given by the Giver, he sees people of different races, different skin colors. And he says, what is this? What is this all about? And the Giver very explicitly says, people used to have different skin colors, but we found that made trouble. And so now everybody's the same. They all have pale skin and dark hair and dark eyes. Very important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's nothing to say that they're all Caucasian. Like, they could be Asian, for example. Like, there's nothing to say that they're white.
Except for the fact that the picture on the front of the book is of someone who's white.
Well,
and
yes.
Lois Lowry took the picture.
I understand that, but
they're white.
Of course they're white. But I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Pale skin, dark hair, dark eyes. It is a 100% Caucasian world. So similar to, I think, The Handmaid's Tale, which in the book The Handmaid's Tale, we are also told it is 100% Caucasian world because they've gotten rid of the other races. when they went to make the movie, they realized, okay, visually we can't do that. We can't.
The movie or the show?
The
Are
movie,
you talking about The Giver or
I'm talking
Handmaid's
about
Tale?
the movie The Giver.
The movie of The Giver, sorry.
Yes.
Go on.
We are going to make the world racially diverse. So clearly they did not go to sameness in the same way, because there are a lot of background characters of different skin tones, different races, different ethnicities, et cetera, et cetera. So clearly there are people in this world that are not just white. Great. Except every character who speaks is white.
Yep.
That is really problematic. Because if we're given to understand that, like, everybody's the same except for your skin color, but there are people of different skin colors, there is absolutely no reason that the family could not be comprised of people from different races, because they're not biologically related to each other.
Totally.
So, like, I mean, that's actually almost worse. Like, that's actually worse racism, to say, like, oh, we'll put people of color in this movie, but we're not going to allow any of them to speak, and they're just background characters.
Yeah, because at least if you make the decision that all of the actors playing people in this community are white, you are using race in an intentional way.
Yes, correct.
But if you just want it to look more diverse, but you're not willing to cast any of those people in your main roles,
Yeah.
that's not you using race.
No.
That's you not acknowledging race.
Yeah.
Which is worse.
It's worse.
Yeah.
It's actually worse.
Like, I think there is something this movie could have done, because in some of the flashbacks and some of the memories, he does talk to characters who are black, and there are people who are...
Well, you're going to talk about the stock footage in a bit.
Well, no, some of the stuff isn't stock footage.
Yeah.
Like
oh,
when
there's
he goes,
like a war when he goes
sees
to
war.
when he goes to army.
When he goes to army, there are black characters in there.
Yeah.
And
he treats them just the same.
It-
Like,
it
he's
could
not
have
like, oh
been-
my God, why is this
yeah.
person black?
it could have been a more powerful moment the way it was in the book.
Yeah.
If all the people in the community were white.
Yeah.
I'm not advocating that we should be giving less roles to people of color in movies.
But
I'm just saying.
But they did give less roles to people of
Yes.
color. The people of color had no roles in this movie.
Well,
so
there were some background actors who got a little bit of work.
yeah.
But bottom line, I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying, if you're going to make a movie about a dystopia,
Yeah.
it should be dystopian.
Yeah. Because then we could have had a conversation about, oh my gosh, I saw these people of different races and everything seemed fine. Like, what is that about? And you could actually talk about it.
Yeah.
But in this case, you can't talk about it because he knows that people of different skin tones exist. So in that case, if that's true of the world, then there's no reason that he or his sister or his mother or his father or the giver or the chief elder or any character had to be white. And they all were white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rules of the world are like the last thing we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to start it.
Yeah.
So before we do that, let's move on to another aspect of
Yeah.
it. Let's talk about exposition and kind of the pace of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about this before. How much of the book passes before he even meets the giver?
Like at least half.
It's a half.
Yeah.
It is like literally, I think, exactly half before he meets the giver. We get to spend so much time in this world seeing who Jonas is, how he interacts with people, learning the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Because the giver is now going to upend everything for him.
Right.
So there's nothing to upend if we don't spend a lot of time in that world.
Right.
Before finding out what's wrong.
And so how do we learn the rules of the world? How do we learn everything about the world?
Yeah. Well, in the book.
No, in the movie.
We are shown.
Yes.
In the movie, we are told.
Yes.
There is. It's super, super weird. There's like 2 pieces of exposition at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It's all voiceover.
Voiceover with literally the words that he's saying on the screen.
Yeah, it is very poorly handled.
Yeah.
It's Basil exposition type stuff.
It's terrible. It's really bad.
It's everybody got that level. It's an everybody got that level of exposition.
Yeah.
It's really, really bad. And he meets the giver 25 minutes in,
Which
something
again,
like that.
I truly believe it's because they didn't want the movie to be in black and white for more than 20 minutes.
It's the pace of the movie. And, we even were acknowledging it while we were watching. Like, so it's moving along and it's trucking along and it's trucking along. And suddenly we're with the giver and suddenly he's getting all the memories. We're like, man, this is booking it now.
Yeah, what's the end going to be?
What are they making time for?
Yeah, well, we found out.
And we talked about this because they turned it into a thriller.
Yeah.
So the third act of the movie is a chase.
Yeah.
But it's like a 30-minute long chase scene.
Yeah.
In the book, he realizes he needs to leave with Gabriel there's
It's
less
like
than
maybe
20.
10, 20 pages.
Yeah, that's the end.
Yeah.
And in the movie, that's the beginning of the third act.
Right.
The third act begins with him saying, I got to get this kid. And so he races to get Gabriel, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's a half-hour end.
Well, because there's this, like, the chief elder is, like, super evil, and she, like, goes to his friend Asher and basically says, like, find him with your drone pilot and kill him. Like,
Yep.
It's really creepy.
Yeah. So the pace of the movie is just weird.
Yeah.
And it's a pace of a movie that's trying to be a thriller, not something that's actually trying to be like the book.
Yeah.
And the way they handle exposition is very bad.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about that?
No, I agree with all of that.
Thank you. So that...
I'm a little out of breath from my rant before.
Yeah, I know. It was a good rant.
Yeah, it
was a good
was.
rant. I'm real proud of you.
Thanks, babe.
So it's a thriller now. It bums me out.
It's
that-
very like Mission Impossible, you
Yes.
know, like that's the way that it looks. Like there's all of these like very like white futuristic hallways and like the pod with the baby in it and these weird white motorcycles. Like it's very like it reminded me of like Mission Impossible or something like that.
It seems clear, especially based on something we will talk about. It doesn't seem clear that was ever their intention from day one, 20 years ago when Jeff Bridges was trying to make this.
No.
Because who do we blame?
Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
They were clearly... It was clear to me that someone did not feel that a movie that was actually like the book would be successful.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They needed to change it.
Yeah.
And I feel really bad for people like you who love the book and maybe were waiting 25 years to see a movie based on it and got this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I feel bad for me of a lot of books, a lot of movies that were made out of books that I love.
I think there is. I think 10 years from now there could be a TV version of this that could be great.
Yeah.
That actually has the guts to do it in a way that is actually similar to the book.
Maybe you'll make it.
I'd probably not. I'm gonna say probably not on that one.
All right.
But that's it. It shouldn't be a thriller now.
No.
The whole thing. Even when we watched the trailer for it.
Yeah.
Do you remember how angry the trailer made you?
Yeah, and like that was years ago when we watched it when it came out, and I was like, oh no, we're not watching this.
No.
Yeah.
This is wrong.
This is terrible.
This is wrong. Everything's wrong. It looks like The Island.
Yeah.
It really looks like
That's
The
what
Island.
that's what I said earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. The Island for kids.
The Island for kids. The Island, by the way, has the distinction, I believe, of being the only movie that I went to see in the theater that I walked out of.
Oh, you walked out of The Island?
I don't think I've ever walked out of any other movie in the theater.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like an hour into it, and I was like, am I enjoying this? No, I'm going to go.
Do you know the twist? Or is it really a twist? I've never seen it. I've never seen it.
Yeah, I think I know the twist.
Yeah. That's the one with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Black Widow, right? Where they're like in white jumpsuits and they're all like clones or something.
Yeah, they're all clones.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert for a really bad movie that came out 10 years ago.
So there's two more things we got to talk about.
Yeah.
Here's the next one. Stock footage.
Oh yeah, you talk about that.
So, in the book, we see Jonas receive memories. And when he receives them, she describes it very specifically. It's very POV. He is experiencing these things in more of a first-person kind of way.
That's right.
And I also said before that this is clearly a low-budget movie, and they were trying to stretch their budget as much as they could. So, it is very clear they tried to keep actually needing to shoot any of those memories
to a minimum.
To the bare minimum.
Yeah, because there are some that he's in.
Yes.
But not a lot.
Yeah. They made up the rest with stock footage.
Yeah.
Now, the entire time we're watching it, I've used stock footage from a website called Pond5.
Yeah.
Our theme song came from there. But I actually took a shot of the credits.
Oh God.
And it says,
is it just Pond 5, Pond 5, Pond 5?
Footage and still photos courtesy of AP Images, Art Beats, Frame Pool, Getty Images, Magnum Photo, Pond 5,
Yeah.
NBC News Archive, Shutterstock, T3 Media. Like, it's ridiculous. Like,
Well, we were watching at one point and you went, that shot is from Baraka.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was downstairs, like after we finished watching the movie, I was in the bathroom and I just heard you yell, I was right.
What does it say right here?
It's clips from Baraka and Samsara.
Yep.
Yeah.
Baraka. So Baraka is a wonderful movie.
Yeah.
That if you haven't seen Baraka, you should definitely see it.
Yeah, you made me watch it.
It's really, really good.
It's not my kind of film.
It's a documentary. There's no words. There's no story. It's just beautifully shot footage from around the world.
Like I said, not my kind of film.
Beautifully. It is a wonderful movie, and there are shots in it that are absolutely from that,
Yeah.
lifted directly from
Yeah,
it.
you recognized it. It's a very famous movie. Like anybody would recognize it.
Yeah. I want to be careful in the way I say this because I understand their budget and their time was limited.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they made a decision. I don't think they went into it saying, we're not even going to bother shooting anything. We'll just use stock footage. I bet there was a conversation where they said, how can we shoot all the things we need to shoot?
Or what's important for us to shoot, and
Yeah.
what do we want to just do as sort of a montage?
And then I think they just said, you know what? I think we're just going to have to use stock footage. It's going to be a lot less expensive and we'll edit something together.
Yeah.
I think it looks terrible.
Yeah, it looks really, it's very weird. Like, it doesn't fit the movie tonally at all.
And also because so much of the stock footage looks like it was shot on like a cell phone.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it was.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's part of the movie. It's really weird.
It doesn't look like a memory that's being imparted to him. It looks like a video montage of stock footage.
Yes, because that's what it is. It looks like someone made it in iMovie.
I hate it. I hate it so much. I can think of, for example, they could have done it in a much more abstract way.
Yeah, or they could have at the very least, for my non-filmmaker self, they could have layered a filter over it or something so it all kind of looked similar,
Yep.
like in color and tone to the rest of the movie.
There's no processing applied to anything. Yeah. It's really, really bad. Like there are shots that look like news footage of like the
like the Berlin Wall. There's one of like Nelson Mandela. Yeah, it's like really fuzzy, like news footage.
But interspersed with like a dad swinging his daughter around that looks like it's from like a heart medication commercial.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
And
one thing. Oh, you go on. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like talking about like adding sort of to what we were talking about with race. Like there was a lot of like African tribes drumming and stuff like that, like a lot of sort of exoticism of people of color. Like that's really the only time we ever see people of color or who are not like white European American is in these clips, and it's all like tribes, and I think that's problematic as well.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Yeah,
there's one aspect of it though that I do want to talk about.
Yeah,
and it has to do with Lois Lowry.
Okay,
who does not? I'm going to say this. She does not get off blameless on this.
Yeah.
Just some aspects of the things I found out just brought her down a peg or two for me.
Oh dear.
So one of the things in San Diego, hang on, let me see if I get this right. In the Comic-Con interview, in the Comic-Con panel, someone asks her, are there things that you think were better in the movie?
Oh boy.
That were not in the book. And she says, you know what? There's one thing in the movie that I loved that they added. There are shots from around the world, and you actually see shots from the world of Islam, and you see people bowing at a mosque.
Yeah.
And I just really like that there's a multicultural aspect to it.
Oh boy.
So that's fine,
yeah.
Right? Then in a separate interview with her, they ask her about ways that she suggested things to the movie, and she says, you know what? You know one thing I suggested? I suggested that they add something from the world of Islam. So she's basically saying, oh, you know, one of the things I really liked about it was
that thing I added.
And it just, oh boy. Just hoping no one's paying attention, but I was paying attention, and I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But bottom line, stock footage, I didn't care for it.
Yeah.
I don't think it worked. I think it just looked super, super cheap.
Yeah, it looked really cheap.
And maybe if they hadn't made the movie as futuristic as they did, maybe they could have they could have shot something more than they shot.
Yeah, I don't know, babe. I don't know what to tell you.
I really don't like it.
Yeah.
So then that brings us to the last thing we didn't like.
Yeah, moving on.
The rules of the world.
Eels.
So there's another episode that we did that this reminded me of a lot, which was Pride and Prejudice.
Okay. Oh, yeah. The Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice that I got super mad at.
You got super mad at that because, and the quick refresher, one of the things that is consistent throughout the book Pride and Prejudice and the 1995 adaptation with Colin Firth is this society has a lot
It's highly regulated.
Highly, highly regulated. And
class, position, gender, the age, there is a way that you behave, and you know exactly who you are and how you behave in the world.
Right.
And yeah, I won't. If you want to listen to my rant about this, go listen to our episode on Pride and Prejudice.
But bottom line, the story that Jane Austen created it exists within those rules and regulations.
Yes.
And then in 2005, they made a movie of it with Keira Knightley that kind of ignores all those rules and regulations.
Yes, unless it's convenient for them.
Right. Which misses the point of the book.
Yes.
Completely.
I agree.
And maybe it's kind of nice on first viewing, but it doesn't hold up, especially when you find out more about it, because it just takes away so much from what was originally meant.
Yeah.
This is the exact same thing
Yeah,
to
I
me.
totally agree. I really I didn't think about that comparison, but I really agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the world of the book, there are so many rules. And in the movie, yeah, there's a lot of rules, but they're broken constantly.
Yeah. And the way that we find out about them is someone will do or say something or like make a joke, and someone else will say, oh, well, you can't do that. That's against the rules. And it's like, but in the book, you wouldn't do it in the first place because you know it's against the rules and no one would ever do it.
And even then, there are some times where the rules are broken in the book, but they're broken in a very, very quiet way.
Yeah.
So, for example,
talk about the thing you liked in the book.
Oh, well, there's a bunch of different things.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you had such extensive notes.
I have a lot of notes. She hadn't seen my notes until just now.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Just to kind of go through some of this stuff really quickly. So the dad takes this baby home that he names Gabriel. You are not supposed to name new children.
Well, he didn't name it. Not only that,
Oh,
it's
no,
worse
no,
than that.
sorry.
He snuck. It's worse than that. He snuck a peek at the list.
Yes.
Because they're all given names like by the whatever council or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's even worse that he did.
Right. So he did that, but the only people he ever told about that were his direct family.
And he said, don't tell anyone.
And he says, don't tell anyone. In the movie, he says that he did it in front of Jonas and Asher and Fiona.
Yeah, everybody.
He says it in front of everybody.
Yeah.
So what's the point of having rules if you can just break them so easily?
Yeah. Can I say something quick about the names while you're looking at the next thing?
Yes.
Can I say one thing very, very small that I liked from the movie? The ceremony at the beginning they do the ceremony at the very beginning of the movie where they're giving the babies to their families. And sort of on like a big screen above in sort of 3D, all of the names of the children are whirling around. And one of them is Ariel.
Yes.
And I got really excited. I was like, it's my name.
You got very excited about that. So I don't really have anything else in regards to like breaking rules, but what
you said you wanted to say something about the sled sliding scene.
Oh, yeah. So there's a scene where he's trying to tell Fiona about a memory that he got about sledding on a sled in snow.
Yeah.
He's trying to describe it to her and she's not understanding it.
I don't know if we made this clear. They don't have weather either.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything sameness.
Yeah.
Climate control completely. They don't have snow because snow brings cold and hunger.
Right.
So they're at the top of this kind of large structure that has a long staircase leading up to it. And in order to describe to her, to show her what sledding is like, they have these trays that are like perfectly sized to go down the smooth portion of the long staircase.
But like no one's ever thought to do that before. I turned to you and I was like, but it's clearly like set up for sledding.
Yeah,
like that's
clearly.
what this thing is.
It looks like a ride at a theme park.
Yeah.
And so they go down and they do it. And she, like, at no point does she ever say, well, no, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, which she should. Like, that would be better.
Yeah.
But they wanted to have this action scene. And this is before she even stops taking her medication or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then they, like, come to the bottom and they're, like, tumbled on the ground and they're laughing. And, like, no one does anything. Like they should be in terrible trouble for that.
They should absolutely be in trouble.
Yeah.
So the entire movie is, it's not so much that people are breaking the rules. People are so hyper aware of what the rules are and that they shouldn't be broken. It gives you the impression that everyone really wants to break the rules.
Yeah.
But that's not how society works.
No. And so in the book, it's actually really interesting. And you mentioned this is that like, there is a very, very small number of rules that like people think are dumb and don't do, and everyone turns a blind eye and it's just kind of accepted.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like the extremely rare exception. You know what I mean? Like there's kind of a joke that like everyone gets their bicycles at age 9 and you are not allowed to ride a bicycle before then, but it's like accepted that someone will teach you to ride a bicycle.
Yeah.
And so when they're all leaving on their new bikes from the ceremony, like the joke is like, oh, do you need me to show you how to ride? I know you've never touched a bicycle before. And they're all riding away perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And
which,
it's
by
like,
the way, is not in the movie.
Which is not in the movie at all. But that's just it's just like it's really well done in the book, saying like all the rules are really, really important, and these are the very, very few that people ignore. You know,
everyone's just so hyper aware of them, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
it's written. It basically feels as if everyone in the movie is someone from our society.
Yeah.
Who has been like they've been brainwashed.
Yeah,
and they all know something's wrong.
Right, which is the problem with a lot of like period movies or even like just like futuristic movies. It's exactly that way.
Yeah. It doesn't, I don't like it.
Yeah, no,
I
you're
really,
right.
really don't
You're
like
right.
it. That's probably my biggest problem with it is the world is not consistent.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
And there's other little things too. Like I don't like the way that they set up the chief elder as a villain.
Yeah, she's super evil.
There's a lot of really, because they turn it into a thriller.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the mom.
Yeah.
In the book,
Yeah.
she is someone who works for the Department of Justice or
Yep.
whatever they call it. But you don't get the sense that she's this very paranoid, intense character.
No, she's just doing her job.
She's doing her job.
Yeah.
Everyone just does their job.
Yeah, no, they made
She has
her-
rules to
the-
follow
in
and
the-
she does the things.
Yeah, they made her like a mole for the chief elder.
Yeah, she's a snitch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awful. She's like really sinister. They made her really sinister.
Very sinister. But no one's as sinister as the chief elder.
No.
And there's a scene between the chief elder and the giver where she's yelling at him. And there's a lot of tension that's set up between the two of them. It really feels like the chief elder is this supreme villain and the giver is this revolutionary.
Yeah. Well, it's just really weird because there were a couple of times that I went, oh, I know why they're doing this. So that they can do this thing. And then it didn't happen. Like
Yeah.
when they gave, so there's at the very beginning of the book, we learned that something had happened like before the beginning of the book, which is like a pilot got lost and flew over the community and scared everybody. And like it was announced that the pilot would be released. And this was before Jonas knew what being released meant.
Mm-hmm.
And so when Asher was assigned to be a drone pilot, I went, oh, I know why they did it. It's going to be Asher. Because he's so happy-go-lucky and like blah-de-blah. And he's going to ignore, he's going to forget to do something or he's going to get confused and he's going to be the one to be released. And it's going to be this real impetus for Jonas. That would have been better.
Yep.
Like that would have been better.
That didn't happen. Yeah.
And then at one point, so one of the things we haven't talked about yet is there was a previous new receiver.
Oh my God, we haven't talked about her.
No, well, I'll mention her and then you can go into it. But who failed? It was like 10 years ago, and no one speaks her name. We don't even use her name again. It was very shameful. She was released and she failed in her task. And we learn in the book it was actually the giver's daughter who was chosen to be the new receiver. And another thing we learn in the book is that the giver used to have a wife, but now she is old enough that they don't live together as a couple, and she lives with a childless adult. So in this world, you don't remain married after your children are grown, and you no longer need to be in a family unit. You sort of just go your own way. And so there was one point in the movie where the giver is sort of having this argument with the chief elder about this thing that happened 10 years ago, and we know that it's his daughter. And I went, oh, she's his wife. She was his wife, and it's their child. It wasn't, but that also would have been better.
She's just evil.
Yeah, she's just super evil. She has no motivation for anything.
And it's really funny. So this brings me back to the Comic-Con panel that I watched. Someone brought up the fact that she was the villain, and Lois Lowry and Jeff Bridges, they're like, she's not evil. She's just part of this world. It's like, I don't think they saw the movie.
Yeah.
Because that's not how it's portrayed at all.
No.
Every single thing about it is the way an evil villain is portrayed in a movie.
Yes, exactly.
That's
exactly.
how those are the tropes they use.
Tropes was the word I was going to use. Like if you're going to use those tropes, then you are acknowledging that it's a villain.
Yep. She is the villain.
Yeah.
But then there's Rosemary,
right,
who is played by T Swift.
Because she has to like sing a few notes of music
and play piano.
And play the piano.
Yeah. And the funny
and
thing
she's
was,
in the movie for all of 2 minutes.
I knew going into it that it was T Swift, but you didn't know.
No, I didn't know.
And they keep her face kind of hidden a little bit. And then finally she turns around and you just grab my arm. You're like, is that Taylor Swift? Like, yeah, sure is. And then later, something that did not surprise me at all, because Jeff Bridges is just everybody's cool uncle.
Yeah.
And he's just saying, yeah, man, it was great that we got Taylor Swift. We were hanging out. We were jamming between takes and everything, because I love music. And, I'm sitting there going like, you know what, Jeff Bridges? You do love music.
He does love music.
Yeah.
He does.
Yeah, that is a thing you like.
He
That's
does.
cool. And
That's right.
It seems like you had a good time making this.
That's great. Good for him. I
So-
didn't have a good time watching it, that's for sure.
Those, I had fun watching it with you.
Yeah.
Because we hated it so much.
I think I think you might have hated this movie more than anything we've watched for the podcast so far. You hated this movie.
Oh, I really did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate it. And I blame Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah, let's blame him.
There's so many things that I looked at in terms of finding out more about the production.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to go through a few of these
Yeah,
things
because you
right
watched
here.
a lot of special features that I didn't have the patience for.
Yeah. So one thing I found out that leads me to another one of our segments,
Mm-hmm.
Sir Not Appearing in This
Ooh,
Film.
yes. Go ahead.
And in this time, it's going to be Lady Not Appearing in This Film.
Okay, all right.
The good lady not appearing in this film is Larissa, She's
Oh, yes, the old.
one of the old, who is one of the reasons her scene was cut is because in the book she is naked nude.
A nude lady.
She's a nude lady in a bath, and Jonas, the 12-year-old, is bathing her.
Yep.
So that got cut, understandably. They were joking that that was the part Lois Lowry was going to play if she was going to have an appearance
That's actually
in it.
really funny.
Which, you know what? Now I'm mad that it was cut because that would have been great.
I mean, you could have shot it tastefully. She didn't have to be nude.
No, totally.
Or he could have been feeding her or doing something else with her. Anything.
Yeah. But anyway, Larissa, the naked old.
I like that.
She is my the good lady not appearing in this film.
I like that. Yeah, that's great.
So Lois Lowry has been very vocal about supporting the movie and supporting the changes that they made, going as far as to say she wishes she could go back and rewrite it to incorporate some of the differences, including the adversarial relationship between the giver and the chief elder. And
Lois,
this is one of those things where it is the height of hubris for us to tell the author of a beloved book that she's wrong.
But she's wrong.
She's wrong. So once the book was released, it is now our book too.
Released.
Yeah, jokes, precision of language. So she is wrong. Taylor Swift was suggested by Harvey Weinstein.
Ew.
Yep. So that's a thing. And that was 2014 again, or 2013, I guess, when they were making it. Jeff Bridges said this about his performance.
Okay.
Someone asked him about inspiration for the character. He said he always went back to the book to draw inspiration for the character.
Good.
Fine. So I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this here at the end.
Okay.
I said this to you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say two things. I love Jeff Bridges.
He's great. We watched The Big Lebowski immediately following this movie because we wanted to watch a good Jeff Bridges movie.
Jeff Bridges is not good in this movie.
No, he's not.
He's not.
He's not good.
He there's a thing that Jeff Bridges is doing now in his advancing years, his rapidly advancing years, where he will play a character, and the biggest choice he makes about his performance is that his lower jaw is going to stick out. He's just you can't see me.
I think he must have seen a behind the scenes of how Ian McKellen did the Gandalf voice and decided that was what he wanted to do.
But he does it in True Grit, and he does it here.
Yeah.
And I would actually say my favorite performance in the last 10 years of rapidly advancing Jeff Bridges is Tron Legacy, because he's an old man, but he doesn't do that voice. But he talks like this the entire time, and it doesn't work at all.
His lower lip is basically meeting his nose.
Yep. It's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good. And I think I don't know.
I'm very sorry, Jeff Bridges. We like you.
I don't know where the communication broke down over this, because it seems like this is kind of my thesis for this entire thing of why the movie doesn't work. I don't think anybody was in charge here.
Yeah.
I think Harvey Weinstein was in charge.
Gross.
I think the director was in charge. I think Lois Lowry, she never really seemed like she was in charge, actually. Yeah. I think Jeff Bridges was in charge. I think that there was no one person who knew tonally what the movie should be and what the performances should be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think there were a lot of people pulling in different directions. I think it was just a lot of people doing their best.
Yeah.
But no one was in charge.
Yeah.
I that's what I really think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Now, I watched a whole bunch of other things about the movie. Let me see here. I guess there's only two last little things I want to say about what I found out and the things that I thought were questionable. I questioned the relationship between Philip Noyce and Jeff Bridges as director and actor.
Yeah.
I don't think Philip Noyce felt comfortable directing Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
He says specifically it was weird coming in considering that Jeff Bridges had been working on this for so long.
Yeah.
And he says, but he showed up, he was just an actor on set. I don't know about that.
Yeah, that sounds right.
That doesn't, I would not be surprised if that was not the case and this is just people being nice about each other.
Yeah.
And then, finally, and this kind of goes along with what I was saying before, that no one was really in charge. They spend this whole time talking about how the chief elder's not a villain. In the behind-the-scenes material, Philip Noyce directly refers to her as the villain. He's the director.
Yeah.
It just seems like there's a lack of communication. They're not all on the same page about everything.
Right, exactly. At least about what message they want to send out.
Yeah. It is a muddled movie.
Yes.
Now, there's one last thing I want to talk about before we end. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the movie?
No, I'm good.
I think we covered a lot of it.
Yes.
Here's the last thing I want to say. There's actually a second version of this movie that we watched that we didn't talk about.
Yep.
And I actually think is worth watching. either instead of the 2014 movie.
Yeah, instead of.
At least in addition to.
Yeah.
If you have seen the 2014 one, you should watch this one.
I mean, if you have the DVD, it's in the special features.
Yep. So 20 years ago, when Jeff Bridges was starting to make it, they had written a screenplay of it, and he hosted a reading of the script in his house. The Giver was played by his father, Lloyd Bridges, who he originally wanted to cast.
Yes.
The chief elder is played by his mother,
Dorothy Bridges.
Dorothy Bridges, who's adorable.
But not an actor.
Not an actor, but she's so much more matronly.
Yeah.
And
She's
and
very
motherly.
old, yeah.
Than the villain Meryl Streep chief elder that we got.
Yeah.
I really liked her in it. I thought she was adorable.
Yeah.
The Jonas is played by his nephew. Was it Dylan Bridges?
Dylan Bridges, his 12-year-old nephew.
Who is the son of Beau Bridges.
Yes.
And Bud Cort did all of the screen directions.
Yes.
From Harold and Maude
Do you
and
call them
MASH.
screen directions? I would call them stage directions, but I don't know if it's different in film.
Yeah, it's different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I've never heard that. I've never heard screen directions.
Yeah. And then
It makes sense.
one last little thing. There's another actor who is present.
So the only actors it's only clips of it, and the only
It's
actors
only like
that we
40
ever
minutes long.
see or hear are Dorothy, Lloyd, and Dylan Bridges. We think
And Bud Cort.
and Bud Cort. We think because if they had shown any of the other people who actually are actors, they would have like had to pay them. But the camera kind of scans the assorted people for a moment and say who we think is sitting there.
I'm pretty positive that Zachary Ty Bryan from Home Improvement is there.
Oh, no, 100%, because I thought so too.
Yeah.
And then we only compared notes like at the end.
No idea who he played.
Yeah.
I
Oh, it's probably Asher.
He probably, but he's so much older. I don't know. But anyway, he's there.
Yeah.
But this is, we got 10 minutes into it, and I turned to you so many times and said, this is what it should have been.
Yeah, totally.
The Giver was so much,
he was warm
and old and grizzled,
Yeah.
and it was so natural. And
well, it's also his grandson that he was acting against, his
Yeah.
own grandson.
now Dylan Bridges,
Is exactly our age and is now the director of digital marketing for Universal Pictures.
he is not an actor now for a reason.
No.
I think it is.
He was in like 3 movies as a kid.
Yeah, he wasn't very good.
No.
But you know what? I'd rather have a 12-year-old who isn't good reading these lines than a 24-year-old who is good reading them, because at least it felt more like what it was supposed to be.
That's right.
This is a version that anyone who likes this should see.
Yeah.
Because it gives you an idea of what a better version of this movie could have been.
Yeah.
I really wish we could have seen it. But we didn't.
We didn't.
But
On
we
that
didn't.
on that note, do you want to do our quadrant?
Let's do the quadrant.
I mean, I feel like this is going to come as no surprise.
Yeah, so, well, it depends on who we're talking about.
I suppose, yeah.
So the people who made this movie, do you think they cared about the source material?
Well, Jeff Bridges did.
Absolutely.
I don't.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe that's it.
They
I'm
all
not,
said they read it and cared
Yeah.
about it, but
I mean, we know Jeff Bridges did.
Mhm.
Let me put it this way: who is the person that we have been blaming for all of the bad shit in this movie?
oh, Harvey Weinstein.
And he didn't give a shit.
Not 2 shits.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna say he was ultimately in charge of what we saw on screen. He didn't give a shit. I'm putting it in the bad didn't give a shit column.
The only person who really did give a shit didn't get the things that they wanted.
Yes.
And is it good?
No.
Oh, so this is a bummer. This is a lower left movie.
This is a bad.
They didn't care and they didn't do a good job.
Yeah.
And you know what? If someone hears this that was involved and they were like, I cared. Like, well, I'm sorry that you weren't in charge.
But you weren't Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
At least, like, God, I hope you're not.
This brings us to the end.
Yes.
This was a fun one. I really liked the book.
Yeah.
I'm glad
yeah.
we did this.
I'm
glad
glad
we did this so I can say I finally read
I'm
the
glad
book.
you finally read it. I just have one thing to say.
Yeah.
I apologize for making you watch this movie.
I accept your apology.
There we go. Do you want to say how people can get in touch with us?
You can get in touch with us in a number of different ways. You can find us on the web at adapterparishcast.com. You can email us at adapterparishcast@gmail.com. And you can find us on social media on Instagram and Twitter at adaptcast. Follow us there, comment, like, do all those things. One thing I will say, in terms of supporting the show, the best way to support us is to tell your friends about it. And also rate and review on whatever podcast platform you're using.
Yeah,
if you're
that'd be
using
great.
Apple Podcasts or Google Play or Stitcher, go in there and give us a rating and a review. It helps out a lot, and we really enjoyed recording this episode.
Yeah. Till next time.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.